Well, guys, welcome to the Spotlight, and this edition is going to take a look at some statistics that have been compiled during the season and build in some of the discussion about the playoffs because we are into the second season now, so I think you're going to enjoy hearing some of these numbers and names. We're going to start with quarterback position, and there's been two guys, Tres Barrera of Sherryland and Obregon of Rowe. These guys have been near the top of the charts. They've been in the headlines quite a bit, and there are reasons why. When you look at the interception percentage of this kid, Tres Barrera, I mean, he came into the playoffs with 31 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. That's very efficient work. And of course, Obregon has been one of the great stories of the season. They didn't get enough points in the playoff game against South, but Javi's had a great season. I would mention that he's also, along with 32 touchdown passes coming into the playoffs, the guy's rushed for 15 too. So you're talking about some guys at that position that have really done a great job for their team. The other guy that stands out to me right now is after having watched Harlingen take out Memorial 41-20, Brandon Garza for the Cardinals had 3 fantastic throws, 3 big bombs to Omar Hunter. He was 14 out of 21 without an interception. I feel like that junior is coming to his own. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Valley next year, along with Arnold, along with a couple other kids. Shea Patterson had 5 touchdown passes in their playoff game, and Fred Hover of McAllen. So those are some of the quarterbacks that have caught my eye, and again, as I say, caught the eye of the headlines. Now, as far as running backs go, you've got to start with Orly Solis out at Roma. That little guy is elusive. He's very tough, set a school record. He's the only guy that had 2,000 yards this season and scored 24 touchdowns. It's just a shame to me that group, the Gladiators, didn't break into the playoffs because they had another pretty good season. You guys are getting close. Maybe next year you can push on through to the second season. Now, there's a lot of good running backs in the Valley this year. I've been impressed with Jaden Taylor at Harlingen South. He's a big kid, and he can really run. He's got good feet, great vision. But like I said, you look at him in pads, he's a thick guy. And so when you hit him, more often than not, you're going to bounce off. Let's stick with Harlingen because I feel like losing Brian Blake, Kevin Ledesma, all these guys, everybody said Harlingen wasn't going to be that good. Well, they are. They're in the second round of the playoffs. And I think Dion Conde has had a fantastic season. He's not a 1,000-yard back, although he's getting close. He's in the 800s or 900s, I believe. But he does have 16 touchdowns, and he's a good, hard runner. He doesn't mess around. He gets with the program. I think what helped Harlingen the other night against Memorial was the return of Victor Cruz. If you remember correctly, this guy, 25, was supposed to be the guy to fill in for Brian Blake. As it turns out, he's had a lot of injury problems. He missed several games. I think he probably rushed for about 300 or 400 yards. Bottom line is he came up big with a couple of touchdowns against Memorial. Isn't it nice to see someone have a redemption game like that? Because people may have counted him out, but I'll tell you what, Victor Cruz did not count himself out. He was a big part of that victory against Memorial. That was a good game to watch, by the way. Other running backs to catch my eye. Eddie Montz is not a running back for PSJA, but he ran like one this year. I know the Bears had a down season. I don't think a lot of people some people may have been surprised at that, some people not. Bottom line is that kid battled through injuries. He played a good season. DeAndre Henry had a good season. The Bears kept fighting, man. I mean, everybody knows that they were down and out pretty quick this season. But guys like Mansa, guys like him, Joey Garza, they have nothing to be ashamed of because they play with pride and they compiled some yards. Now, PI is still alive in the playoffs. They got that combination of Lozoya and Vela. Both guys have a high average per carry. By the way, Wajardo at Valley View, they didn't make it either, but he led the Valley with a 10.5 per carry average. Think about that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. That's a first down every time the kid carried the ball. For 2 years, Alexis Wajardo has been one of the best running backs in the Valley. I think he may have a chance to go somewhere and play. He is that explosive. He is that talented. Again, like Roma, it's a shame. Some of these teams that got close, they still had some good numbers, and they were right there at the end. Not everybody can make it, guys. That's just the way it works. Now, how about some receivers? We have one guy that's gone over 1,000 yards that I can tell. I have to do the stats again today and tomorrow. 1,000 yards for Adrian Salazar at Rowe. Now, Rowe is an interesting case because, we were walking around the sidelines at the Harlingen game saying, well, right now, who's the hottest team in the Valley? It had to have been McAllen Rowe, and he was a big part of that with Obregon, with Tony Bimpong, with all these guys. Rowe had an explosive team, and you have to give credit to Harlingen South because in that bi-district playoff game, they outscored the Warriors. And that, to me, is a surprise. I'm not surprised that they won because they're a good ball club. The Hawks are fine. It's just the way they did it and the way their defense shut down, más o menos shut down Rowe. I think they had nearly 400 yards, but they didn't have enough points. But this guy, Adrian Salazar, had 15 touchdowns in the regular season. He went over 1,000 in the playoffs. Boy, what a fun team to watch. They really were impressive on offense this year. Now, some other guys that have caught my eye. Diego Garcia is a guy from Metcalfe-Elson, and those guys out in the Mid-Valley know who I'm talking about. Number 29, 21.5 yards per catch. You know, whoever was a quarterback, Eric Morales, whether it was Noe Gonzalez, this guy consistently made big plays. In fact, Edcouch, with the big play guys they have, Isaias Martinez had 129 yards in the Bi District game against Miller. He didn't have it 7 or 8 carries. Him, Diego Garcia, Mariscal, they've got some playmakers, and they've got Port Lavaca Calhoun coming up. And let's face it, that's going to be an uphill struggle because that's a very good football team. But the bottom line is when you get the ball in Diego's hands, good things happen. And a lot of times it's a lot of yardage being chewed up. That kid can really play the game. Another guy who I think has had some fine plays this year, a kid named Selber Gutierrez. I have a tendency to want to try to call him Selber, but his name is Silver. We'll stick with Silver. Bottom line is him and Badillo, a couple other guys for Hidalgo. You know, when Shea Patterson makes those quick throws, those guys are there. They run really precise routes. All of them are flyers per se. They can get up and down the field. You keep an eye on Hidalgo for next year because they won 7 games. They made the playoffs. Came up short against Kingsville, but that's a pretty athletic team. From what I understand, that guy Houston was a monster. And so sometimes in a one-game playoff setting, you know, when you run up against an athlete like that, it's going to be hard to stop. So, you know, Hidalgo had a fine season. They broke through to the playoffs. Congratulations to old Coach Ford and them over there. So those are some of the guys that I've seen statistically that stood out. One other guy I'd like to mention because we sometimes, you know, we have a hard time remembering the lower level teams, sub-5As. That kid Noe Castillo for La Villa. Here's a guy who's been in the program for many years. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was a starter as a sophomore. Now he's in his senior year. That guy averages 19 yards per catch. He had 10 touchdowns. He's played everywhere. Man, I think he was a quarterback at one point. He's played running back. I think he made the honorable mention All-State team with 7 interceptions as a defensive back. At the Class A, Class 2A level, kids play a lot of positions. They're tired after those games. Man, they play 48 minutes of football. I've always thought Noe was a good ball player, and it's about time he got his credit. So, you know, a lot of times here on the huddle, we like to talk about teams, we like to talk about matchups. Every now and then it's nice to talk about the players and the individuals who are doing things. A couple of weeks ago I brought you the guys that you probably never heard of. Most of these guys you probably have, but I felt like, you know, as we go into the second round of the playoffs here, it was worth reminding us of some of the numerical accomplishments and some of the kids who were behind it. So when the spotlight returns next week, I can't possibly tell you the secrets about what we're going to talk about, but I guarantee it's going to be good. Selber's out.